Black pilot told to wait while real pilots enter. Gasps echo when she unlocks the cockpit. The air in Terminal C at O'Hare International hung heavy with anticipation as passengers watched the drama unfold. Marcus Johnson stood tall in his crisp uniform, gold stripes gleaming under fluorescent lights, his face a careful mask hiding the storm brewing within. After 15 years of defying expectations and breaking barriers, he thought he'd seen it all. He was wrong. "Sir, I need you to step aside while the pilot's board," the gate agent said, her eyes skimming past his credentials. "I am the pilot," Marcus replied, his voice level despite the familiar sting. The words he'd repeated countless times throughout his career. That's when Thomas Whitman stepped forward, Executive Vice President of Operations, his presence unexpected and unwelcome. "Let the real pilots through first," he said with a dismissive wave. "Protocol, you understand." No one expected what happened next. As whispers rippled through the crowd, the cockpit door opened from within. Captain Eliza Chen stood framed in the doorway, her uniform immaculate, her expression thunderous. "First Officer Johnson," she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent gate area. "I believe we have a pre-flight checklist waiting." The gasps were audible as realization dawned. Sometimes, prejudice wears many faces, and justice arrives in unexpected forms. This is the story of how a single moment at Gate C-42 unraveled decades of institutional bias, exposed a dangerous conspiracy that threatened hundreds of lives, and forever changed the landscape of commercial aviation in America. Marcus Johnson's alarm blared at 4:15 a.m., though he'd been awake for 20 minutes already, staring at the ceiling, mentally preparing for the day ahead. Beside him, Aisha stirred but didn't wake. His wife had returned late from the courthouse, another high-profile discrimination case weighing on her shoulders. The irony wasn't lost on him. While she fought racial injustice in the courts, he navigated it at 37,000 feet. The bathroom mirror reflected dark circles under his eyes. At 42, Marcus was in his prime as a pilot, but the toll of constantly proving himself showed in the premature gray at his temples and the deepening lines around his mouth. Today marked 15 years since he'd earned his commercial license, a milestone worth celebrating, yet somehow the achievement felt hollow. His phone buzzed with a text from Captain James Wilson. "Happy anniversary, kid. Proud of you." James had been the first to see something in Marcus, back when he was just a wide-eyed flight school student with dreams bigger than his bank account. As one of the few black captains at Atlantic Skyways, James had become more than a mentor. He was the father figure Marcus had lost too young. Marcus typed back, "Thanks, old man, how's the checkup looking?" The reply came quickly, "Don't worry about me, just fly straight today." But worrying about James had become second nature. The veteran pilot had been grounded twice in the past year for medical evaluations, and the whispers about forced retirement were growing louder. In an industry where older pilots were increasingly viewed as liabilities rather than assets, James's 40-year career hung by a thread. The drive to O'Hare was quiet, Chicago's pre-dawn streets offering a rare moment of peace. Marcus used the time to mentally prepare for Flight AS-742 to San Francisco, reviewing weather patterns and mentally walking through emergency procedures, a ritual that had kept him and his passengers safe through nearly 10,000 hours in the cockpit. Atlantic Skyways had been his home for 12 years, though home wasn't quite the right word. More like a house where certain rooms remained locked to him. Despite his impeccable record and seniority, he remained a first officer while watching less experienced pilots, primarily white, advance to captain. His latest application for promotion had been denied just last month, with the familiar explanation of not enough command experience, a circular problem with no apparent solution. The crew entrance at O'Hare buzzed him through with mechanical indifference. The security guard, Hector, offered a familiar nod. "Morning, Captain," he said, the honorary title a small act of rebellion they both appreciated. "Not yet," Marcus replied with a tight smile, "but I'm working on it." The crew room bustled with activity, pilots and flight attendants preparing for the day's first departures. Marcus spotted Sarah Rodriguez, the head flight attendant assigned to his flight, reviewing the passenger manifest with methodical precision. "Heavy load today?" he asked, pouring himself black coffee from the communal pot. Sarah looked up, her expression brightening. Nearly full, bunch of tech executives heading to a conference. She lowered her voice. Including Thomas Whitman from corporate. Marcus's hand stilled mid-pour. Whitman on our flight. Apparently he's doing some kind of evaluation. The crew is buzzing about it. Thomas Whitman represented everything Marcus had fought against his entire career. As executive VP of operations, he controlled pilot advancement, and rumors of his traditional views about who belonged in a cockpit were well known, if carefully unspoken. "Who's captain on this leg?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer wouldn't please him. "Chen," Sarah replied, watching his reaction carefully. "Eliza Chen." The coffee suddenly tasted bitter. Captain Eliza Chen was a newcomer to Atlantic Skyways, transferred from their Asian routes just 6 months ago. Her reputation had preceded her, youngest female pilot to make captain in the airline's history, with a sterling record and connections in upper management. Marcus had yet to fly with her, but the prospect of being evaluated by Whitman while paired with an unfamiliar captain added another layer of pressure to an already significant day. "Have you flown with her before?" he asked Sarah. "Once she's—" Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully, precise, by the book, doesn't say much beyond operational necessities. Perfect, a by-the-book captain and a prejudiced executive on his anniversary flight. Marcus checked his watch. He had 45 minutes before pre-flight checks, enough time to review the flight plan and prepare mentally for whatever challenges lay ahead. The flight operations office was quiet when he entered, just a few dispatchers monitoring weather systems and a maintenance coordinator on a call about a delayed aircraft. Marcus logged into the system, pulling up the flight details for AS 742. The route was straightforward, weather conditions optimal, but something about the maintenance log caught his attention. 3 entries in the past month for the same issue. Intermittent warnings from the hydraulic pressure monitoring system, all cleared by maintenance as sensor error, no actual pressure loss detected. A single entry might be dismissed, but 3 suggested a pattern. Marcus printed the log, making a mental note to discuss it with Captain Chen during their briefing. As he was logging out, a new notification appeared on the screen. "Passenger Whitman, Thomas upgraded to first-class seat." Of course, front row seat to the show. When Marcus entered briefing room B, he expected to find Captain Chen waiting. Instead, the room was empty save for James Wilson, sitting with uncharacteristic stillness, staring at his tablet. "James, I thought you were on the Denver route today." The older pilot looked up, his usual confident posture diminished. "Schedule change. Medical pulled me for another evaluation. Apparently my blood pressure is concerning." The quotation marks were audible in his tone. Marcus took the seat across from him, concern overriding his own preoccupations. "Is it serious?" James waved dismissively. "It's bureaucracy. They're looking for reasons to push me into retirement. 40 years of perfect landings, and suddenly I'm a liability because I'm over 60. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I heard Whitman's on your flight today." "News travels fast." "Listen to me carefully, Marcus. That man isn't just doing a routine evaluation. This is about the captain program." Atlantic Skyways had recently announced a new accelerated captain training initiative, ostensibly designed to address a projected pilot shortage. The rumor mill suggested it was actually a response to criticism about the airline's dismal diversity statistics among command crew. "What about it?" Marcus asked, though dread was already pooling in his stomach. "There are 5 slots opening up. Your name was on the short list. I saw it myself in the committee meetings. But Whitman's been pushing back, saying the program should focus on technical merit only." The coded language was familiar. Technical merit had long been the shield behind which biased decisions hid. "So today is my audition," Marcus concluded. James nodded grimly. "And Chen's involved somehow. She was in a closed-door meeting with Whitman and the chief pilot yesterday." Before Marcus could ask for details, the door opened, and Captain Eliza Chen entered. She was shorter than he'd expected, her frame slight beneath the uniform, but her posture and expression projected unmistakable authority. At 35, she was one of the youngest captains in the fleet, her rapid advancement a testament to exceptional skill, or exceptional connections, depending on who you asked. First Officer Johnson, she acknowledged with a brief nod, then turned to James. Captain Wilson, I didn't expect to see you here. Just wishing my former student luck on his anniversary, James replied, standing. 15 years today since he got his commercial license, one of the best pilots I've ever trained. If Chen was impressed, she didn't show it. I'll see for myself. We should begin our briefing, First Officer. James clapped Marcus on the shoulder, his grip conveying what words couldn't. As he left, Marcus turned his full attention to Captain Chen, determinedly professional despite the growing unease about what this flight might represent for his career. I reviewed the maintenance log, he began, pulling out the printout. There's an issue with the hydraulic monitoring system that's recurred 3 times this month. Chen took the paper, scanning it efficiently. Noted, we'll keep an eye on the indicators and perform additional system checks before takeoff. She handed it back, her expression unreadable. Any other concerns? No, Captain. Good, let's review the flight plan then. Their briefing was textbook, comprehensive, but devoid of the casual conversation that typically built rapport between pilots who would be responsible for hundreds of lives together. Chen was as advertised, precise, thorough, and completely impersonal. She offered no insights into her background, asked no questions about his experience, and made no mention of Whitman's presence on their flight. As they concluded, Marcus decided to address the elephant directly. I understand Executive VP Whitman will be on board today. Chen's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, annoyance, perhaps, or concern. Mr. Whitman frequently flies with different crews. We'll conduct this flight like any other with precision and professionalism. Is that understood, First Officer? Perfectly, Captain. As they left the briefing room, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into something more complex than a simple evaluation. Chen's deliberate neutrality felt calculated rather than natural, and James's warning echoed in his mind. Whatever game was being played today, the rules weren't clear, and the stakes seemed perilously high. The walk to Gate C-42 took them through the main terminal, a gauntlet of curious glances and double takes that Marcus had learned to ignore. The sight of a black man in a pilot's uniform still prompted visible surprise from some passengers, a reminder that despite his years of experience, he remained an anomaly in their eyes. Chen walked slightly ahead, her pace brisk, acknowledgement of colleagues minimal. As they approached the gate, Marcus noticed Thomas Whitman standing near the desk, engaged in conversation with the gate agent. Whitman was in his late 50s, silver-haired and immaculately dressed in a tailored suit that screamed corporate authority. He looked up as they approached, his gaze sliding past Marcus to focus entirely on Chen. Captain, he greeted her warmly, extending his hand. Good to see you again. Mr. Whitman, Chen replied with a professional nod. I didn't expect a personal send-off from executive management today. Whitman smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. I like to stay connected with our operational staff, especially our most promising talent. He finally turned to Marcus, his acknowledgement cursory. First Officer. Mr. Whitman, Marcus replied evenly. I'll be observing today's flight as part of our ongoing operational assessment, Whitman continued, addressing Chen. Don't mind me, just pretend I'm not there. An impossible request, given the circumstances, but Chen merely nodded. We're about to begin pre-flight checks, Mr. Whitman. Will you be joining us in the cockpit for the preparation phase? A flicker of discomfort crossed Whitman's face. I'll board with the first-class passengers. I have some calls to make before takeoff. Chen turned to Marcus. First Officer, please proceed with the exterior inspection. I'll start on the cockpit checks. It was a standard division of duties, but something in Chen's tone caught Marcus's attention, a subtle emphasis that felt deliberate. He nodded and turned toward the jet bridge, but Whitman's voice stopped him. Actually, Captain Chen, I've been meaning to discuss the new training protocols with you. Perhaps First Officer Johnson could handle the initial cockpit setup while we talk. Chen hesitated, the first crack in her composed demeanor. Pre-flight procedures are quite specific, Mr. Whitman. As captain, I should. I'm sure First Officer Johnson is capable of waiting a few minutes, Whitman interrupted smoothly. Protocol, you understand. The gate area had grown crowded. passengers gathering for boarding, many watching the exchange with undisguised interest. Marcus stood perfectly still, acutely aware of the optics, a black first officer being told to wait while the real pilots discussed important matters. Chen's gaze met his briefly, something unspoken passing between them. "Very well," she said to Whitman. "A brief discussion only. First Officer Johnson, please wait here. I'll join you shortly." As Chen and Whitman stepped aside for their conversation, Marcus maintained his professional demeanor, though internally he seethed. This was a power play, pure and simple, designed to diminish him publicly. The familiar burn of injustice rose in his throat, but years of experience had taught him that visible anger would only reinforce the stereotypes he fought daily. Sarah Rodriguez appeared at his side, her expression sympathetic. "Everything okay?" "Fine," Marcus replied, keeping his voice neutral. "Just a slight change to the pre-flight sequence." Sarah's eyes darted to where Chen and Whitman stood in close conversation. "He's such a—" she caught herself, professional instincts kicking in. "I've prepared the cabin for boarding, full flight as expected." "Thanks, Sarah. We'll be ready to board soon." A minute stretched uncomfortably as Marcus stood at the gate, conspicuous in his uniform yet effectively sidelined from his duties. He could feel the curious glances from passengers, the whispered speculations. A young black boy, perhaps 8 years old, stared at him with undisguised admiration, tugging his mother's sleeve and pointing. Marcus managed a smile and a nod for the child, remembering his own childhood dreams and the precious few role models who had made his current position seem possible. Finally, Chen returned, her expression now completely unreadable. "Thank you for your patience, First Officer. We should begin our checks immediately." As they moved toward the jet bridge, the gate agent called out, "Excuse me, but the pilots need to board first." Marcus turned, credential in hand. "I am." "Sir, I need you to step aside while the pilots board," the agent continued, her eyes sliding past his credentials to focus on Chen. "I am the pilot," Marcus stated firmly, the familiar words bitter on his tongue. Whitman stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly in the suddenly hushed gate area. "Let the real pilots through first," he said with a dismissive wave. "Protocol, you understand." The moment hung in the air, a perfect crystallization of everything Marcus had fought against his entire career. Passengers stared, some uncomfortable, others merely curious, as he stood frozen in place, the humiliation burning like acid. Then something unexpected happened. Captain Chen moved to stand directly beside him, her voice clear and commanding. "First Officer Johnson is one of our most experienced pilots with 15 years of distinguished service. If you delay him further, we will not depart on schedule, and I will personally document the reason." The gate agent paled, Whitman's expression darkened, and the atmosphere shifted palpably. Without another word, Chen gestured for Marcus to proceed ahead of her onto the jet bridge. As they walked, Marcus struggled to reconcile this action with Chen's previous aloofness. "Thank you, Captain," he said quietly. "I don't tolerate operational interference, regardless of its source," she replied, her tone professional but with an undercurrent of something Marcus couldn't quite identify. "Mr. Whitman seems to have forgotten that we operate as a team, and that aircraft safety depends on mutual respect between flight crew members." They reached the aircraft door where Sarah waited to greet them. Beyond her, Marcus could see the cockpit door standing open. Chen paused. "First Officer Johnson, I actually boarded earlier to begin some preliminary checks. If you'll proceed to the cockpit, I'll handle the final passenger manifest with the cabin crew." Puzzled but compliant, Marcus made his way through the first-class cabin, nodding politely to passengers already settled in their seats. As he approached the cockpit, he noticed something unusual. The checklist had already been started, items ticked off in precise handwriting that wasn't Chen's. The cockpit itself was immaculate, systems powered up, preliminary checks completed with unexpected thoroughness. Marcus slipped into the first officer's seat, running his hand over the controls with the familiar reverence of someone who truly loved flying. Despite the uncomfortable start, once in the cockpit, a sense of belonging washed over him. This was where he was meant to be. He heard commotion at the aircraft door, Whitman's voice, authoritative and impatient. "I need to speak with Captain Chen immediately." Marcus remained focused on his instruments, reviewing the work already done and continuing with his portion of the checks. The voices grew louder, more insistent, and then Sarah's professional tones. "Sir, boarding is in progress. If you could please take your seat." Whitman appeared in the cockpit doorway, his composure slightly fractured. "Where is Captain Chen? We need to discuss something before takeoff." "I'm not sure, sir," Marcus replied truthfully. "She mentioned completing some checks with the cabin crew." Whitman's expression tightened. "When she returns, please inform her that I need a word. It's about the hydraulic system issue you noted." This caught Marcus by surprise. "You know about that?" "I make it my business to know about potential maintenance issues on flights I'm taking, First Officer." Whitman's tone was condescending. "Unlike some, I review all relevant documentation before boarding." The implication was clear and deliberately insulting. Before Marcus could respond, Sarah appeared behind Whitman. "Sir, we need to continue boarding. If you could please take your seat." "I'm speaking with the pilots." Whitman cut her off without turning around. "Actually," Sarah replied with calm precision, "you're speaking with one pilot and blocking the boarding process for 162 passengers." Whitman's face reddened. "Where is Captain Chen? I specifically need to speak with her." "I can't leave the cockpit during pre-flight checks, sir," Marcus stated firmly. "Safety protocols." The standoff might have continued, but at that moment, boarding announcements began. Whitman, evidently unwilling to make a more public scene, reluctantly retreated to his seat, promising to address this situation after takeoff. As boarding continued, Marcus completed his portion of the checks, increasingly confused by Chen's absence. The captain typically remained in the cockpit during boarding, available to address any technical issues that might arise. Just as he was about to call the cabin crew to locate her, the cockpit door opened. Chen entered and secured the door behind her, her expression unreadable. "Status, First Officer." "Pre-flight checks nearly complete, Captain. All systems normal, though I'm monitoring the hydraulic pressure indicators given the maintenance history." Marcus hesitated, then added, "Mr. Whitman was looking for you, something about the hydraulic system." Chen took her seat with deliberate calm. "Mr. Whitman is not a pilot, nor is he a mechanic. His concerns about technical matters will be addressed if and when they become relevant to flight safety." She ran her eyes over the completed checklist. "Excellent work on the preliminary items." "I didn't complete those, Captain. They were done when I arrived." A ghost of a smile touched Chen's lips. "Were they?" She reached for the radio. "Atlantic 742 requesting pushback clearance." As they completed final preparations, Marcus felt a shift in the cockpit atmosphere. Chen's movements were precise but relaxed, her communications with him more natural than during their briefing. When the ground crew signaled they were clear to push back, she turned to him. "First Officer Johnson, your aircraft." This was unexpected. While captains often allowed first officers to handle takeoffs and landings for experience, it wasn't standard on the first flight together, especially with an executive on board. "My aircraft," Marcus confirmed, unable to keep a note of surprise from his voice. Chen nodded. 15 years deserves recognition. Show me why Captain Wilson speaks so highly of you." The pushback and taxi proceeded smoothly, Marcus handling the aircraft with the confident precision that had earned him the respect of colleagues, if not the promotion he deserved. Chen monitored his actions without comment, occasionally handling radio communications while he focused on maneuvering the massive Boeing through O'Hare's complex taxiways. As they reached the runway threshold and received clearance for takeoff, Chen spoke quietly, her words nearly lost beneath the engine noise. "Some barriers aren't meant to stand, First Officer. Sometimes they need to be broken." Before Marcus could respond, she confirmed takeoff clearance, and he advanced the throttles, sending the aircraft surging forward. The familiar sensation of acceleration pressed him back into his seat, the vibrations of the runway giving way to the smoothness of flight as the wheels left the ground and the aircraft climbed steadily into the morning sky. Flying had always been Marcus's escape, the one place where the weight of others' perceptions fell away, where his skill and judgment were all that mattered. As they climbed through 10,000 feet and he engaged the autopilot, he felt a familiar sense of liberation. Up here, he wasn't defined by his race or others' expectations. He was simply a pilot doing what he loved. Chen completed the post-takeoff checklist, her movements efficient. "Well executed," she said simply. "Your technical skills match your reputation." "Thank you, Captain." They settled into the cruise phase, the aircraft leveling at 35,000 feet, the vast expanse of America's heartland spreading below them. The cockpit fell into a comfortable silence, broken only by periodic communications with air traffic control and the steady hum of the aircraft systems. After 20 minutes, Chen spoke. "Mr. Whitman isn't simply on this flight to observe, he's here to evaluate me as well." Marcus glanced at her, surprised by the voluntary disclosure. "For what purpose?" "I've been recommended to head the new captain training program." She kept her eyes on the instruments. "My background before Atlantic Skyways was actually in training and standardization at Cathay Pacific." The pieces began to fall into place. "So today is an audition for both of us." In a manner of speaking, Chen finally turned to look at him directly. "I requested you specifically as my first officer for this flight, First Officer Johnson." "This was unexpected. May I ask why?" "Your record speaks for itself. 15 years, over 10,000 hours, perfect evaluations. Yet still a first officer, while pilots with half your experience have been promoted to captain." Her tone remained professional, but there was an undercurrent of controlled anger. The disparities in advancement at this airline are statistically impossible without bias. Marcus stared at her, caught between professional caution and the rare opportunity for candid conversation about the barriers he faced. "That's a bold statement, Captain." "I prefer to call it factual." Chen checked a system indicator, then continued. "The new program needs instructors who understand both the technical aspects of command and the additional challenges faced by pilots from underrepresented groups. Your perspective would be invaluable." "Assuming I'm selected for promotion first." "That is precisely why today's flight is significant." Chen lowered her voice. "Whitman opposes your candidacy. He believes," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "that certain pilots might not command the necessary respect from crew and passengers, regardless of their technical qualifications." The familiar justification for discrimination, thinly veiled in concern about command presence and passenger comfort. Marcus had heard it throughout his career. "And you?" he asked, the question more direct than he would normally risk with a new captain. "I believe leadership is demonstrated, not presumed." Chen's answer was immediate. "Your handling of the gate situation proved my point. Many would have reacted with justified anger, which would then be used to label them temperamental or difficult. Instead, you maintained professionalism while standing your ground. That is command presence." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime, the flight attendant call button from the cabin. Chen answered, "Cockpit." Sarah's voice came through the speaker. "Captain, Mr. Whitman is requesting access to the cockpit." Chen and Marcus exchanged glances. "Is it an emergency, Ms. Rodriguez?" "He says it concerns the hydraulic system issue and can't wait." Chen sighed almost imperceptibly. "Very well. Clear the galley area and inform him that one of us will open the door shortly." After Sarah acknowledged, Chen turned to Marcus. "Your aircraft, I'll deal with Mr. Whitman." As Chen left her seat to operate the security door, Marcus focused on maintaining their course, monitoring the systems with heightened attention. The hydraulic pressure indicators were normal, showing no signs of the intermittent issues noted in the maintenance log. He heard the cockpit door open behind him, followed by Whitman's voice, pitched low but intense. "Captain Chen, I've reviewed the maintenance reports more thoroughly. This aircraft should not have been cleared for a transcontinental flight with an unresolved hydraulic monitoring issue." Chen's reply was calm but firm. "The issue has been addressed by maintenance multiple times. The consensus is that it's a sensor anomaly, not an actual pressure problem. All indicators are currently normal." "I'm not comfortable with consensus when passenger safety is at stake," Whitman insisted, his tone sharpening. "As Executive VP of Operations, I strongly recommend we divert to the nearest suitable airport for a full system check." This was extreme. A diversion based on a maintenance history note rather than any actual system malfunction would be highly unusual and costly. Marcus kept his attention on flying the aircraft, but listened intently to the exchange. "Mr. Whitman," Chen replied, her voice cooler now, "I appreciate your concern. However, the decision to divert is entirely at the captain's discretion, based on actual flight conditions and system performance, not theoretical concerns. I strongly suggest you reconsider, Captain. Your judgment on this matter will be noted." The threat was thinly veiled, and Marcus tensed, recognizing the no-win situation Chen faced. If she diverted unnecessarily, it would reflect poorly on her decision-making. If she continued and any issue arose, Whitman would claim she ignored his warning. Chen was silent for a moment before responding. "First Officer Johnson, status report on all hydraulic systems." "All hydraulic systems show normal pressure and fluid levels, Captain," Marcus reported formally. "No anomalies on any indicators." "Thank you." Chen's tone was back to its professional crispness. "Mr. Whitman, based on current system status and the recommendation of both maintenance and my first officer, I see no justification for diversion at this time. We will continue to monitor all systems closely throughout the flight. Now, I must ask you to return to your seat as we're approaching an area of light turbulence." Whitman's frustration was palpable in the ensuing silence. Finally, he said, "This will be discussed further upon landing, Captain Chen. I hope your confidence is justified." After he departed and the door was secured, Chen returned to her seat, her expression now visibly tense. That was unexpected. "He seems unusually focused on the hydraulic issue," Marcus observed, "almost as if he was hoping for a reason to question your judgment." "Or create one?" Chen ran a system check, her movements precise but with a new edge of irritation. "Whitman has opposed the diversity initiatives from the beginning. A female Asian captain and a black first officer responsible for a flight that experiences problems. That would suit his narrative perfectly." The implication was disturbing but not implausible. Corporate politics could be ruthless, and Whitman had made his position clear through his actions. Marcus checked the hydraulic indicators again, a new suspicion forming. "Captain, do you find it odd that this hydraulic sensor issue has occurred 3 times in the past month, all on different flights? Yet maintenance can't pinpoint the cause, always described as a sensor anomaly." Chen's gaze sharpened. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not sure yet," Marcus admitted, "but I'd like to run a more comprehensive system check than the standard monitoring." "Proceed," Chen agreed, watching as he accessed the extended diagnostic menu on the aircraft's computer system. The diagnostic took several minutes to complete, during which they flew in focused silence, both acutely aware of the potential implications of what they might find. Finally, the system displayed its results. There, Marcus pointed to an anomaly in the data stream. The primary hydraulic pressure sensor is receiving intermittent power interruptions. It's not a sensor failure, it's an electrical supply issue to the sensor itself. Chen studied the diagnostic results, then pulled up the maintenance history on her tablet. The previous write-ups only tested the sensor function, not its power supply. She looked up at Marcus, a new respect in her expression. "Good catch, First Officer. This could have eventually led to false readings that might have triggered unnecessary emergency procedures. Or been used to justify claims about flawed judgment," Marcus added quietly. Chen's expression darkened momentarily before she regained her professional composure. "Let's document this properly and ensure it's addressed correctly upon landing." She made several entries in the electronic logbook, then added, "I'm noting your role in identifying the root cause." "Thank you, Captain." As they continued westward, the atmosphere in the cockpit shifted subtly. The initial tension had given way to a professional respect, forged through shared challenges and mutual recognition of each other's capabilities. They discussed their backgrounds, Chen's journey from a small flight school in Taiwan to becoming an instructor at Cathay Pacific before joining Atlantic Skyways. Marcus's struggle through flight training while working multiple jobs, his mentorship under James Wilson, his dedication to opening paths for other minority pilots. 3 hours into the flight, as they crossed over Colorado, Sarah appeared with coffee for both pilots. Everything okay up here? Mr. Whitman has been asking the cabin crew some rather pointed questions about Captain Chen's background. Chen accepted the coffee with a wry smile. I'm sure he has. How are the passengers doing? Mostly sleeping or watching movies, though there's a young boy in row 15 who keeps asking his mother if he can meet the pilots. Apparently, he spotted First Officer Johnson at the gate and has been talking about becoming a pilot ever since. Marcus smiled, remembering the child who had pointed at him with such enthusiasm. If conditions permit before landing, perhaps we could arrange a quick cockpit visit. I'll coordinate with his mother, Sarah agreed, then hesitated. There's something else you should know. One of the passengers recognized Mr. Whitman and mentioned to me that there's a board meeting tomorrow in San Francisco. Apparently, there are rumors about a major reorganization of flight operations. Chen and Marcus exchanged glances. This added another layer to Whitman's presence on their flight and his unusual behavior regarding the hydraulic system. Thank you for the information, Ms. Rodriguez, Chen said formally. Please continue to keep us updated on any relevant developments in the cabin. After Sarah departed, Chen turned to Marcus. A board meeting about reorganizing flight operations, and suddenly Whitman is intensely concerned about a minor maintenance issue on our specific flight. It seems like more than coincidence, Marcus agreed, especially given the timing with the new captain program announcements. Chen was silent for a moment, her expression thoughtful. I believe Mr. Whitman may be building a case against certain changes the board is considering. Our flight, and specifically our performance as pilots who don't fit his preferred profile, is being scrutinized for any possible ammunition he can use. The realization settled heavily between them. Their actions today wouldn't just affect their individual careers. They could influence broader policies that would impact countless other pilots from underrepresented groups. Then we give him nothing to use, Marcus said with quiet determination. Perfect flight by the book with the added bonus of correctly identifying a maintenance issue that previous crews missed. Chen nodded, a hint of a smile touching her lips. Precisely, First Officer. As they began their descent into the San Francisco area, the stakes of their performance felt magnified. Every communication with air traffic control, every adjustment to their approach, every system check took on added significance. Both pilots maintained meticulous precision, their teamwork now seamless despite having only met hours earlier. Traffic into San Francisco was heavier than expected, requiring them to enter a holding pattern before final approach. During this period of circling, Chen turned to Marcus. When we land, Whitman will undoubtedly have more to say about our decision not to divert. I want you to know that I'll take full responsibility as captain. With respect, Captain, we made that decision together based on proper system diagnostics, Marcus countered. I stand by our assessment completely. Chen studied him for a moment. You understand that aligning yourself with a controversial decision could affect your candidacy for the captain program. I understand that compromising my professional integrity would make me unworthy of that promotion in the first place, Marcus replied simply. Something shifted in Chen's expression, approval perhaps or recognition of a kindred spirit. Well said, First Officer. As they were cleared for approach, Chen asked, Would you like to make this landing as well? The offer was generous. Captains typically handled challenging approaches like San Francisco's, with its frequent crosswinds and stringent noise abatement procedures. Thank you, Captain, but I believe it's your turn to demonstrate your skills. Chen nodded, taking control of the aircraft. My aircraft. Your aircraft, Marcus confirmed, switching to a monitoring role while handling communications. Chen's approach was textbook perfect, smooth, precise, maintaining the exact glide path despite shifting winds near the runway threshold. As they touched down with barely a bump and began their rollout, Marcus noted the hydraulic pressure indicators remained steadfastly normal. Beautiful landing, Captain, he acknowledged as they taxied toward the gate. Thank you, First Officer, Chen replied, the formality of her response belied by the slight smile that accompanied it. Let's hope the rest of our arrival proceeds as smoothly. But both knew that the most challenging part of their day might still lie ahead, confronting Whitman and whatever narrative he had constructed about their flight. As they completed shutdown procedures at the gate, Sarah's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, Mr. Whitman is requesting that both pilots remain on board after passenger deplaning for a debriefing." Chen exchanged a glance with Marcus. "Acknowledged. Please inform Mr. Whitman will be available after completing our post-flight responsibilities." After Sarah signed off, Chen turned fully toward Marcus. "Before we face whatever Whitman has planned, I want to be completely transparent with you. The Captain Program Selection Committee meets tomorrow morning. As the prospective head of the program, I've been asked to provide my assessment of candidates, including you." Marcus nodded, keeping his expression neutral despite the sudden increase in his heart rate. "I appreciate your candor, Captain. Based on today's flight, I intend to strongly recommend you for immediate promotion to Captain, with additional consideration as an instructor in the program." Chen held his gaze steadily. "Your technical skills are exemplary, but more importantly, you've demonstrated the judgment and integrity essential for command." The words hung in the air between them, their significance momentous for Marcus's career. After 15 years of being passed over, of watching less qualified pilots advance ahead of him, of maintaining his professionalism in the face of constant subtle and not-so-subtle prejudice, this recommendation could finally break the barrier that had held him back. "Thank you, Captain Chen. That means a great deal coming from you." "It's earned, not given," she replied simply. "Now, let's complete our paperwork before dealing with Mr. Whitman." They worked efficiently through the post-flight checks and documentation, including a detailed write-up of the hydraulic sensor power supply issue they had identified. As they finished, Marcus noticed Chen adding something to her captain's log, a personal record separate from the official documentation. "For my own records," she explained, catching his glance. "I've learned that maintaining detailed personal documentation of all flights and decisions can be valuable in certain situations." The implication was clear. She had faced her own battles in the industry and had developed strategies to protect herself. Marcus nodded in understanding. As the last passengers deplaned, Sarah appeared at the cockpit door. "Mr. Whitman is waiting in the first row. Also, the boy from row 15 and his mother are hoping for that cockpit visit if you're still willing." Chen smiled, the expression warming her usually reserved features. "Absolutely. Please send them in first." The boy's eyes widened with wonder as he entered the cockpit, taking in the array of instruments and controls. His mother followed, smiling apologetically. "I'm sorry to bother you after such a long flight, but Tyler hasn't stopped talking about becoming a pilot since he saw you at the gate, Mr. Johnson." "First Officer Johnson," Chen corrected gently. "And I'm Captain Chen. We're both very happy to meet a future aviator." Marcus gestured to the pilot's seat. "Would you like to see what it's like to sit where the pilots do, Tyler?" The boy nodded eagerly, carefully climbing into the captain's chair with his mother's help. Marcus explained the basic controls in terms an 8-year-old could understand, while Chen took photos with the mother's phone, capturing Tyler's expression of pure joy and determination. "Did you always want to be a pilot?" Tyler asked Marcus, his innocent question carrying deeper resonance than he could know. "Since I was about your age," Marcus confirmed. "I used to watch planes take off and land and dream about flying them someday." "Did people tell you that you couldn't?" The question was startlingly direct, revealing that even at his young age, Tyler had already encountered limitations placed on his aspirations. Marcus met the boy's gaze directly. "Some did, but others, like my mentor Captain Wilson and Captain Chen here, reminded me that the sky belongs to everyone brave enough to claim it." Tyler nodded solemnly, absorbing this wisdom. "I'm going to be a pilot too. Maybe we'll fly together someday." "I look forward to it," Marcus replied, meaning it sincerely. "Make sure to study math and science. They're very important for pilots." After a few more minutes and several more photos, Tyler and his mother thanked them and departed, the boy clutching a wing-shaped pin Marcus had given him from his own collection. As they left, Thomas Whitman appeared in the doorway, his expression stone-faced. "I trust the tourism portion of our flight is complete now." Chen stood, her posture straight, her tone professional but cool. "Mr. Whitman, please come in." Whitman entered the cockpit but remained standing, creating a deliberate power dynamic by towering over the seated pilots. I want to discuss your decision to continue this flight despite known maintenance concerns. There were no active maintenance concerns, Mr. Whitman, Chen replied calmly. There was a history of intermittent sensor anomalies, all of which had been cleared by maintenance. During the flight, First Officer Johnson conducted an extended diagnostic that identified the root cause, a power supply issue to the sensor, not a hydraulic system problem, which has been fully documented in the maintenance log, Marcus added, ensuring the issue will be properly addressed rather than continuing to recur. Whitman's jaw tightened. Nevertheless, when a senior executive expresses safety concerns, they should be taken seriously. They were taken seriously, Chen countered. They were evaluated against actual system data and the professional judgment of two experienced pilots. Had there been any genuine indication of a hydraulic system issue, we would have diverted immediately. The board will be very interested to hear about this incident, Whitman said, the threat barely veiled, particularly in light of tomorrow's discussion about the new captain training program. Chen met his gaze unflinchingly. I look forward to presenting my comprehensive assessment, including how First Officer Johnson's diagnostic skills prevented what could have become a recurring issue with unnecessary diversions and passenger disruptions. Whitman turned his attention to Marcus, his expression calculating. First Officer Johnson, do you believe you're ready for promotion to captain, given your involvement in today's decision-making? It was a loaded question, designed to either elicit self-doubt or prompt an overconfident response that could be used against him. Marcus considered his words carefully. I believe my record speaks for itself, Mr. Whitman. 15 years of safe operations, over 10,000 flight hours, and consistent positive evaluations from the captains I've flown with. Today's flight demonstrated my ability to work effectively with a new captain, identify and resolve technical issues, and maintain professionalism under challenging circumstances. Whether that merits promotion is for the committee to decide based on the same standards applied to all candidates. Something like frustration flickered across Whitman's face. He had clearly expected either defensiveness or hesitation, not this measured confidence. The committee will indeed decide, he said finally. Captain Chen, I'll expect your written assessment by 800 tomorrow. It's already completed, Mr. Whitman, Chen replied, holding up her tablet. I'll be submitting it to the chief pilot within the hour with copies to all committee members as per protocol. Whitman's expression tightened further. Very efficient, Captain. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, I received a call during our flight from James Wilson. It seems his medical issues have been resolved and he's been cleared to return to full flying status. Interesting timing, wouldn't you say? With that parting shot, he exited the cockpit, leaving Marcus and Chen to exchange puzzled glances. What did he mean about Captain Wilson? Chen asked once Whitman was out of earshot. Marcus shook his head. I'm not sure. James has been dealing with medical restrictions for months. Whitman made it sound like there's more to the story. Chen collected her belongings, her movements deliberate. There's always more to the story with executives like Whitman. Power and control matter more than operations or people. She paused, looking directly at Marcus. Which is precisely why the captain program needs people like you. As they left the aircraft together, walking through the now empty cabin, Marcus felt a weight lifting, not just the professional pressure of the flight, but something deeper. For the first time in years, he sensed a genuine opportunity for advancement, a chance to break through the barrier that had held him back despite his qualifications and experience. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this story so far. If you are, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Your support means the world to me and helps this channel grow. Now, let's get back to finding out what happens next with Marcus and Captain Chen. In the terminal, they parted ways professionally, Chen heading to file her report in person with the local chief pilot, Marcus to catch the crew shuttle to the hotel. As he waited at the pickup area, his phone buzzed with a message from James. Proud of you today, kid. Heard you aced it. Call me when you're settled. The cryptic message only deepened the mystery of Whitman's parting comment. How did James know how the flight had gone? And what did his medical clearance have to do with anything? At the hotel, Marcus finally had a moment to call his mentor. James answered immediately, as if he'd been waiting for the call. "There he is, the man of the hour," James greeted him, his voice stronger and more buoyant than it had been in months. "James, what's going on? Whitman made some comment about your medical clearance having interesting timing." James chuckled, the sound rich with satisfaction. "Let's just say I called in some favors for a second opinion on my medical status. Turns out those concerning test results Whitman's hand-picked medical examiner found were, shall we say, overstated. You think Whitman was trying to force you into retirement?" The idea was shocking, but not entirely surprising given what he'd witnessed today. "I know he was," James replied, his tone hardening. "He's been systematically pushing out older pilots who support the diversity initiatives, especially those of us on the hiring and promotion committees. 3 other senior captains over 60 have been sidelined for dubious medical reasons in the past year." Marcus absorbed this information, the pieces falling into place. So today wasn't just about evaluating me for promotion. No, it was Whitman's attempt to build a case against the entire program. A flight with a female Asian captain and a black first officer experiencing problems would have been perfect ammunition. Except there were no problems, Marcus pointed out. In fact, we identified the root cause of an issue maintenance had missed repeatedly. Exactly. James's satisfaction was evident. Chen called me immediately after landing. She said you were exceptional, professionally and personally. Her recommendation for your promotion is apparently the strongest she submitted for any candidate. A warm sense of vindication spread through Marcus's chest, though he kept his response measured. "I appreciate that. She's an impressive captain herself." "She is," James agreed, "and more strategic than Whitman realizes. She's been documenting the promotion disparities for months, building a comprehensive case that the current system is statistically biased. Tomorrow's board meeting isn't just about the new captain program. It's about addressing the systemic issues that have held back qualified pilots like you for years." The implications were enormous, not just for Marcus's career, but for countless other pilots facing similar barriers. "How can you be sure the board will listen?" "Because Chen has allies Whitman doesn't know about, including 3 board members who have been waiting for solid documentation to act on. And as of today, she also has you, a perfect case study of qualification without promotion." The conversation left Marcus with a complex mix of emotions: hope for his own advancement, determination to help others facing similar obstacles, and a new understanding of the behind-the-scenes forces that had shaped his career path. His thoughts turned to Aisha, who had fought similar battles in her legal career. She would understand both his cautious optimism and his lingering wariness. As if conjured by his thoughts, his phone buzzed with a text from his wife. "Heard your flight landed safely. How did it go with Whitman watching?" He called rather than texted, wanting to hear her voice. When she answered, the background noise suggested she was still at the courthouse. "Hey," he greeted her, the simple word carrying the weight of their 15 years together. "Hey yourself," she replied warmly, "so don't keep me in suspense." Marcus summarized the day's events, from the humiliating moment at the gate to Chen's unexpected support, the hydraulic system diagnosis, and finally, James's revelations about the larger context of tomorrow's board meeting. Aisha listened without interrupting, her legal mind absorbing the details and implications. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment before responding. "This Chen sounds like someone who's playing chess while Whitman's playing checkers." "That's exactly it," Marcus agreed. "She had this plan from the start, requesting me specifically as her first officer, documenting everything, building a case that's both personal and statistical." "Smart woman," Aisha approved. "The personal story makes the statistics real for people who might otherwise dismiss them." Her tone softened. "How are you feeling about all this, really?" The question made Marcus pause, moving beyond the professional assessment to examine his deeper emotions. "Cautiously hopeful," he admitted finally. "But also tired. 15 years of having to be twice as good to get half as far. Even if this works out, it shouldn't have taken this long or required this much effort from so many people." "I know," Aisha said softly, her own experiences as a black woman in law giving her intimate understanding of his frustration. "But change happens in steps, not leaps. If you break through this barrier, you help widen the path for others. That's what keeps me going, Marcus acknowledged. The thought of more kids like Tyler in row 15 seeing someone who looks like them in the captain's seat. They talked a while longer about her case and their plans when he returned home, the conversation grounding him as it always did. By the time they hung up, his perspective had shifted, from focusing on the injustice of the past to the possibility of the future. Sleep came surprisingly easily despite the day's tensions and tomorrow's uncertainties. When his alarm sounded at 6 a.m., Marcus felt rested and centered, ready to face whatever the day might bring. He was halfway through breakfast in the hotel restaurant when his phone rang, Chen's number appearing on the screen. "Good morning, Captain," he answered formally, aware of potential listeners nearby. "First Officer Johnson," her voice was crisp, but with an undercurrent of excitement. "I've just come from a preliminary meeting with the chief pilot and 2 board members. I thought you should know that the full board meeting has been moved up to 9 a.m. and your presence has been requested." Marcus's pulse quickened. "My presence, did they say why?" "Officially, to provide direct testimony about yesterday's flight and the hydraulic system diagnosis. Unofficially," she paused, "I believe they want to make an announcement in person." "About the captain program?" "About your promotion," Chen clarified, "and several others that have been inexplicably delayed over the past 2 years." Marcus set down his coffee, his hand suddenly unsteady. "That's unexpected." "Is it?" Chen's tone held a hint of amusement. "After 15 years of exemplary service, the only unexpected thing is how long it's taken." Her voice turned serious again. "Whitman is furious, of course. He's demanding the meeting be delayed until a full investigation of yesterday's flight can be completed." "On what grounds?" "He's claiming we violated protocol by not diverting when a senior executive expressed safety concerns." Chen sounded more irritated than worried. "It's a desperate move. The maintenance records clearly show we identified the actual issue, and the chief pilot has already backed our decision completely." "So what happens now?" "Now you finish your breakfast, put on your most professional uniform, and meet me in the lobby at 8:15. We'll go to the meeting together." There was a smile in her voice as she added, "A united front seems appropriate, don't you think?" When Marcus hung up, he sat motionless for several moments, processing the implications. After 15 years of patience, perseverance, and overlooked excellence, change was coming with unexpected speed. His phone buzzed again, a text from James. "The tide is turning. See you at the board meeting." By 8:10, Marcus was waiting in the lobby, uniform pristine, thoughts collected. Chen arrived precisely on time, accompanied by a woman Marcus didn't recognize. Asian, perhaps in her early 60s, with an air of unmistakable authority. "First Officer Johnson, this is Victoria Liang, chairperson of the board," Chen introduced them. Marcus extended his hand, masking his surprise. "It's an honor to meet you, Ms. Liang." "The honor is mine, Mr. Johnson," Liang replied, her handshake firm. "Your reputation precedes you, both as a pilot and as someone who has maintained exceptional professionalism under challenging circumstances." "Thank you, ma'am." Liang studied him with keen eyes. "I'll be direct, as that's my way. Today's meeting will address not just the new captain training program, but the systemic issues that have prevented qualified pilots like yourself from advancing appropriately. Mr. Whitman has been particularly vociferous in his opposition to what he calls preferential treatment. I expect he will be equally opposed today." "I understand," Marcus replied carefully. "Good, because I need to know that when you receive this promotion, you're prepared for the scrutiny and potential backlash that may follow. Some will claim you were promoted to fill a quota rather than on merit, despite your qualifications." It was a stark but realistic assessment, one Marcus had already considered many times. "With respect, Ms. Liang, I've been dealing with those attitudes my entire career. The only effective response is excellence, which I intend to continue delivering." Liang nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. "Well said," she checked her watch. "We should proceed, the car is waiting." The ride to Atlantic Skyways' San Francisco offices was brief, but consequential. Chen used the time to brief Marcus on who would be present at the meeting and what to expect. Whitman would have allies on the board, primarily older executives who shared his traditional views about who belonged in airline leadership positions. The key, Chen explained, is to remain factual and professional. Whitman wants to provoke an emotional response that he can use to reinforce stereotypes. Don't give him that satisfaction. I've had plenty of practice, Marcus assured her. The boardroom was already nearly full when they arrived, executives and senior pilots seated around a massive mahogany table. James Wilson sat near one end, his presence a welcome surprise. He offered Marcus a subtle nod of encouragement as they entered. Whitman sat near the head of the table, engaged in intense conversation with two other executives. He looked up as they entered, his expression darkening momentarily before he composed it into professional neutrality. Victoria Liang took her place at the head of the table, with Chen and Marcus seated nearby. As the room settled, Liang called the meeting to order with brisk efficiency. Good morning. Today's agenda has been amended to address multiple related issues: the new captain training program, promotion practices within our pilot corps, and a specific recommendation for immediate advancement. She turned to Whitman. Mr. Whitman, I understand you have concerns about yesterday's Flight 742 that you believe are relevant to our discussion. Whitman straightened, clearly prepared for this opportunity. Yes, Chairperson. Yesterday's flight highlighted serious concerns about judgment and adherence to safety protocols. When I, as Executive VP of Operations, expressed concern about a documented maintenance issue affecting flight safety, my recommendation for diversion was dismissed by both Captain Chen and First Officer Johnson. And was there, in fact, an actual system malfunction during the flight? Liang asked. That's not the point, Whitman countered. The point is that when senior management identifies a potential safety issue, it should be treated with appropriate deference. James Wilson spoke up unexpectedly. With respect, Mr. Whitman, that is precisely not how aviation safety works. Operational decisions must be based on actual system conditions and professional judgment, not management hierarchy. This from a pilot who was recently grounded for medical concerns, Whitman responded dismissively. Medical concerns that have been thoroughly reviewed and dismissed by 3 independent examiners, James countered, sliding a folder toward Liang. As documented here. Liang accepted the folder without opening it. We'll address Captain Wilson's status separately. For now, let's return to Flight 742. She turned to Chen. Captain Chen, please summarize the maintenance issue in question and your assessment during the flight. Chen outlined the situation with clinical precision. The history of intermittent hydraulic sensor warnings, the comprehensive diagnostics they had performed during flight, and their discovery of the actual issue with the sensor's power supply. In other words, Liang clarified, not only was there no actual hydraulic system malfunction, but you identified the root cause of a recurring issue that maintenance had previously missed. That is correct, Chairperson, Chen confirmed. The diagnosis has been verified by our maintenance team overnight, and the issue has been properly resolved. Liang turned to Marcus. First Officer Johnson, as I understand it, you were instrumental in identifying this root cause. Could you explain your process? Marcus described his analysis methodically, keeping his explanation technical and factual. As he spoke, he noticed Whitman's growing discomfort. This was clearly not proceeding as the executive had hoped. When Marcus finished, Liang addressed the board at large. It seems to me that rather than demonstrating poor judgment, these pilots exemplified precisely the kind of thorough, data-driven decision-making we should expect from our command crew. They refused to be pressured into an unnecessary and costly diversion, instead diagnosing and documenting an issue that might otherwise have continued to recur. Several board members nodded in agreement. One, a former pilot himself, added, "The cockpit is not a democracy, and it's certainly not a place where management rank trumps technical expertise and direct system information." Whitman's expression hardened. The issue here is broader than one flight. It's about the standards we apply for advancement to captain. The proposed changes to our promotion process risk prioritizing diversity statistics over the rigorous standards that have made this airline safe and successful. An interesting perspective, Liang replied, her tone neutral but her gaze sharp. Perhaps this is the right moment to review those standards and their application. She nodded to a woman at the end of the table who distributed folders to each board member. What you're receiving, Liang explained, is an analysis of pilot advancement at Atlantic Skyways over the past 10 years. It shows promotion rates, time to advancement, and correlation with performance metrics, broken down by demographic categories. As the board members reviewed the documents, a palpable shift occurred in the room's atmosphere. Several executives looked up with expressions ranging from surprise to dismay. One older board member removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose as if suddenly tired. These disparities, Liang continued, cannot be explained by performance differences, experience levels, or any other merit-based factor. The statistical probability of such patterns occurring without bias is effectively zero. Statistics can be manipulated, Whitman objected, though his usual confidence seemed diminished. Indeed they can, Liang agreed, which is why we've included individual case studies. She looked directly at Marcus. First Officer Johnson represents a particularly striking example. 15 years of exemplary service, over 10,000 flight hours, consistently positive evaluations, and yet passed over for promotion multiple times while pilots with half his experience advanced to captain. James Wilson added quietly, I've personally recommended First Officer Johnson for promotion 7 times over the past 8 years. Each recommendation was declined for various shifting reasons. The room fell silent as the implications settled. Finally, one of the younger board members spoke. I joined this board to help build an airline that leads the industry, not just in profitability, but in practices. These numbers suggest we're failing in a fundamental way. Whitman began to respond, but Liang raised a hand, silencing him. Mr. Whitman, your perspective is noted. However, the data before us demands action, not debate. She turned to Chen. Captain Chen, you've been recommended to head our new accelerated captain training program. The board has reviewed your qualifications and unanimously approved that appointment, with the exception of Mr. Whitman, who recused himself citing potential bias due to your shared flight experience. Chen nodded her acceptance, her expression professionally restrained despite the significance of the appointment. In that capacity, Liang continued, you've submitted recommendations for the first cohort of advancement candidates. Among them, you've given your strongest endorsement to First Officer Johnson based on both his long-term record and your direct observation of his performance. Is that correct? It is, Chairperson, Chen confirmed. First Officer Johnson demonstrates every quality we seek in a captain: technical excellence, sound judgment, leadership ability, and the capacity to remain professional under pressure. Liang turned to Marcus. First Officer Johnson, assuming the board approves your promotion to captain, effective immediately, would you also consider serving as an instructor in the new program, helping to mentor other advancement candidates? The question caught him by surprise, though he maintained his composure. I would be honored, Chairperson. Helping others navigate that path would be deeply meaningful to me. Excellent, Liang surveyed the room. I propose we vote now on 3 items. The official launch of the accelerated captain training program under Captain Chen's leadership, the immediate promotion of First Officer Johnson to captain, and the establishment of a committee to review and revise our advancement practices to eliminate the disparities documented in this report. She paused. Unless there are objections. Whitman looked as if he had plenty to say, but the mood of the room had shifted decisively against him. After a tense moment, he simply shook his head, his expression unreadable. The vote was swift and decisive. Unanimous approval on all 3 proposals, including a reluctant yes from Whitman, who clearly recognized the futility of opposition at this point. As the meeting concluded, board members approached to congratulate both Chen on her appointment and Marcus on his promotion. The formality of the boardroom gave way to genuine warmth, and from some, quiet apologies for how long this recognition had been delayed. James was the last to approach, his face alight with vindication and pride. He reached out to shake Marcus's hand, then pulled him into a brief, powerful hug. Captain Johnson, he said, the title rich with meaning. It has a damn fine ring to it. I wouldn't be here without you, James, Marcus replied, emotion finally breaking through his professional reserve. You'd have made it eventually, James countered. "I just helped clear some of the obstacles." He glanced toward Whitman, who was gathering his papers with tight-lipped efficiency, though some were more persistent than others. Chen joined them, her usual reserve softened by the morning's success. "Captain Johnson, Captain Wilson, I believe this calls for a celebration before our return flight." As they left the boardroom together, Marcus felt the weight of 15 years lifting from his shoulders. The path ahead would have its own challenges. He harbored no illusions that one promotion would erase decades of institutional bias. But a critical barrier had been broken, not just for him, but potentially for all who would follow. His phone buzzed with a text from Aisha. "Well, don't keep me in suspense." He smiled, typing back 4 simple words. "Captain Johnson, reporting duty." Her reply came instantly. "About damn time." Outside the building, San Francisco's morning fog was burning away, revealing a clear blue sky. The same sky that had called to him since childhood, now open with new possibility. As Chen and James discussed logistics for the return flight, Marcus took a moment to simply breathe, to acknowledge the journey and the milestone. Tomorrow would bring new responsibilities, new challenges, new opportunities to prove himself. But today, for this moment, he allowed himself to feel the full significance of what had been achieved, not just a personal victory, but a small step toward a more just and equitable future in the profession he loved. Captain Marcus Johnson. Finally, the title matched the man who had earned it long before the world was ready to acknowledge it. As they walked toward the waiting car, Chen fell into step beside him. "You know what happens now, don't you?" she asked quietly. "What's that, Captain Chen?" A rare smile transformed her usually serious features. "Now we get to hold the door open for others." Marcus nodded, determination settling alongside the satisfaction. "That's exactly what we'll do." Behind them, the airline's headquarters rose against the clearing sky, its glass facade reflecting clouds and possibility in equal measure. Change had come today, hard one, long overdue, but undeniably real. And with it, the promise that tomorrow's pilots would face fewer barriers and find more allies than those who had blazed the trail before them. For Marcus Johnson, that promise was worth every struggle, every setback, every moment of having to be twice as good to get half as far. Because in the end, excellence had won out over prejudice, merit over bias, justice over tradition. And that was a flight plan worth following, no matter how long the journey.